All right, we are going to get rocking and rolling for our last live Q&A of the 14-day intermittent fasting challenge. Remember, tomorrow, this is the last lesson. Today was your last lesson. I encourage you, if you didn't watch all of those videos, to catch up on them this weekend, because tomorrow morning you're going to get a form uploaded to your schedule. You can access that two ways in the portal, either from the calendar view tomorrow morning. You just click on it, click view item, or you can go under the forms tab, which you will find the challenge kickoff form. This is going to ask you to complete a couple of questions for me about your 5-day fast that we're going to start on Monday of next week. And that's going to run Monday through Friday, where you're going to choose one of these fasts, the 12-12 or the 16-8. And your goal is to try to follow that fasting protocol, given the times you set for yourself, given your schedule, your own personal schedule. And we're going to follow that for 5 consecutive days next week to see how you enjoy it, how your body adapts to it, and if it's something you want to continue to use in your daily life. So that form is going to help me keep on the same page as you, to know what you're trying to do, what your goals of the week are for your fast, so that I can help support you along the way next week. The other thing I want to touch on before I jump into today's FAQs, this is the last chance we have to tie up any loose ends via live chats. You can always, if you have questions over the weekend as we get ready for our fast, starting technically Sunday night when we stop eating, feel free to reach out to me anytime via the group chat in the portal or via email, so that I can make sure all of your questions are answered and you are fully prepared to start next week. Now, one of the things I want to touch base on before I jump into today's material, yesterday we had a question from Zach about whether or not fasting starts after your last bite or after your body is finished digesting. And so I mentioned in yesterday's chat that I actually had to look that up, because I wasn't quite too sure what the definition was that he was using, and if we were talking about the same thing in terms of what fasting means. So fasting is a term that's interchangeably used for a couple of different bodily processes. And so one of the things that I was curious about is if he was talking about ketosis, which when I looked it up after yesterday's chat, that's exactly what it sounds like he was referring to, and what a lot of people, other people, meant when they say fasting doesn't start until you're done digesting. So what they mean is that when your body is done digesting, so all of the food you've eaten is through your system, it's done being processed, you're done pulling the energy that you can from it, your body then switches from burning those nutrients to burning stored body fat. So this is the process called ketosis, where you start using body fat cells instead of stored carbohydrates in order to fuel your body. And so that process of being in ketosis begins after your body has completed digestion. So after all of the food is completely digested. So you begin fasting technically after your last bite, but you don't start ketosis until much later into that fast. So those later hours, starting about hour 12 onwards from there. So I just wanted to clarify that from yesterday. But today's lesson was covering a couple of frequently asked questions that we may have touched on a lot of these already throughout the week, but I think it's important to go over them again because they get asked that frequently. And I want to make sure again that we're all prepared for our fast starting on Monday. So the first one being, do I need to follow a fasting schedule every single day? What if I'm fasting in the morning and not eating till the afternoon, but I want to meet friends for breakfast one day? What do I do about this? And so we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about scheduling the fasts, of how at a minimum on a regular basis, if you continue to use IF in your life, that you use it at least 2 days a week. You practice it at least 2 days a week, because intermittent fasting is a skill, and like any skill, you gotta practice it in order to keep these things fresh. So I recommend at least 2 days a week, but you could go anywhere from 2 to 7, depending on how it fits into your schedule and on your lifestyle. Even if, say, for example, you're only doing it 2 days a week, if on one of those days there's a special event, a holiday falls on that day, there's a spontaneous breakfast or brunch with friends, or something comes up that you want to participate in, there's nothing that says you can't skip your fasting that day. This is meant to be a tool that's used when it's appropriate, and sometimes it's just not appropriate to use. So if you feel like you're missing out on your life because you're trying to follow a fasting schedule, then fasting is no longer working for you, it's working against you. So I would say in those rare days when it is getting in the way of important social activities, that doesn't mean you should just break it whenever you feel like it, but important social activities that you want to be a part of, then I say you could easily skip it. You can rearrange the schedule. You can move days. You can do what you need to do in order to live your life with intermittent fasting and not have it impede those things. So a minimum of 2 days a week. Remember, next week for the practical portion, I'm asking you to do it for 5 consecutive days, Monday through Friday. That's the one time that I'll encourage you to go at least 5 days in a row. Again, for a number of reasons. One, to see if it's really something you want to keep doing, if your body can adapt to it easily, and to get over those beginning adjustment period with an intermittent fasting style approach. The second frequently asked question that I commonly get is, if I'm really hungry towards the end of my fast, is that normal? And is it bad if I have a little snack? And so particularly if you're doing the 16-hour fast, but even with the 12, if you feel hungry in the beginning, like next week, if you're feeling hungry towards the end, that is completely normal. This is not a normal thing for you likely to go that long without food. And so your body is going to be kind of pushing back a little bit. But as long as you're not experiencing any of those negative physical symptoms that we talked about yesterday, dizziness, nausea, lightheadedness, extreme headache, stomach pain, anything like that, then you can push through. And that's where some of the benefit comes, because you begin to learn that the hunger you're feeling is not actually an emergency. You can learn to suppress those feelings and continue on with your day and not let your hunger rule how or dictate how you organize your day and what you do. So that's pretty important. Now, if you eat something, that's okay too, especially if you're feeling those negative symptoms, which I would encourage you to eat. But even if you're trying to go for 16, hour 14, it just becomes too much, you can have a little snack. You will be breaking your fast, but this is something we can work into. You don't have to start at 16 right off the bat. You can start lower and gradually ease yourself into it as your body adjusts. So if you get to hour 13, 14, 15, and you're really, really starving, like it's impeding your ability to think about anything else, then I would say go ahead, have a little snack. Maybe hold off on a full meal until your eating window, but just have a little snack to get you over that hump, and then we can start to work you up to that full 16 hours or full fasting time that you're going for. Okay. Now, the question we covered yesterday too when surviving the fast is, what can I consume during my fast? And we talked in depth yesterday about the nuance of what is technically breaking a fast and how it depends on your goals for the fast and a number of things. But I would say there's a good rule of thumb. If you consume anything with calories, you're going to be breaking your fast. The big 3 things that you can consume without worrying about breaking your fast to help stave off hunger, to help you stay full and satisfied, to help keep you hydrated are water, the big 3, water, tea, and black coffee. Those 3 things, you can have as much of it as you want while you're not eating, while you're going through your fasting window, to help you get through that period. And sometimes if you're not opposed to intaking caffeine in either the tea or the black coffee, that can be a good energy boost to get you through those later hours of the fast when you might be feeling a little bit more tired than usual just because you don't have any calories. So again, if you eat anything, I would assume that's going to be breaking the fast. But if you want to keep it safe, the big 3, water, black coffee, tea, you'll be safe. Okay. And then another frequently asked question that I get is, what should I eat for my first meal when I break my fast? We also touched on this yesterday with Zach's great question about what should he be eating for the first meal. Now, one thing to remember about an intermittent fasting style approach: yes, you're going to be eating during a smaller period of time during the day. Yes, your meals are likely going to be bigger because you're going to have less of them. Yes, you're going to be consuming a larger amount of calories and a much smaller time frame. What that does not mean is that does not mean that you have a license to eat all of the junk food that you feel like eating. Okay, just because you have more wiggle room and more freedom in the types of foods that you can choose doesn't mean you should use intermittent fasting as a means to just pig out and gorge yourself once your eating window hits. And so what I would encourage you to do is, even if you're really hungry at the start of your eating window next week, that your first meal be no bigger than a normal sized meal. So for some of us, it's going to vary between 300 and 600 calories for that meal. But and I would err on the side of a little bit smaller than normal, because what you'll find as your body adapts and as your appetite suppresses, oftentimes it doesn't take very much food during that first meal to completely satisfy you for a while. So I would err on the side of smaller meals, but definitely no bigger than a normal sized meal, 300 to 600 calories, and a good balance of nutrients. So we want to make sure there's some carbohydrates in there, whether it's starchy carbohydrates, rice, pasta, bread, etc., potatoes, or if it's going to be fruit. And definitely want to make sure to get some veggie carbs in there as well. But the carbohydrates are going to give you a boost of energy to make sure you can actually get through the rest of the day. As time goes on, you'll probably notice less or be less noticeable whether or not you're more tired than usual in the morning or whenever you happen to be fasting towards the later stages. You'll notice it's less affected, your energy. But you definitely want to make sure, especially if you have a workout plan later, that you're getting some carbohydrates in this first meal. And a normal amount of that as part of that whole meal. You want to get some protein in there. Protein is going to be super important for building and maintaining muscle mass. Even if you're not currently involved in a serious strength training program that's going to help you get stronger and build muscle, although I highly encourage you to start if you're not. Making sure when you're going an extended period of time without eating, it's very hard for our body to dictate where the calories come from that we're using. Yes, it's going to come from the nutrients we eat, but in the absence of that food in our stomach, it's going to pull from body fat stores, but it's also going to try to pull calories out of your muscle tissue. It's going to use muscle tissue, convert it into energy that you can then burn to function while you're fasting. So it's going to be super important in order to protect your muscle mass that we're involved in strength training just to stimulate that muscle and to tell the body that we need it to stick around, but also to feed that muscle by getting protein in your diet. So first meal, you need to have a good source of protein. I recommend at least 20 grams just to make sure we're preserving that good muscle mass, and we're going to be preferentially burning the stored body fat during these fasts. So carbohydrates, protein, and of course, we can fit some dietary fats in there just because dietary fats are important for hormone production and for a number of other bodily functions that we need that are super important. And it'll help just round out that good balanced meal. Again, because you're eating less meals during the day, it's going to be important that each one of those meals is a good balance of nutrients so that by the end of the day, we're not shortening ourselves on any of those three. We're not shortening ourselves on protein, carbs, or dietary fats in our diet. So a good normal sized meal, good amount of carbs, protein, dietary fats, about 300 to 600 calories in total. That's going to be your best bet for your first meal of the day. And again, I want to reiterate, intermittent fasting is not an excuse to pig out on your favorite junk food when that eating window comes around. It's super important to remember because if you fall into that trap, intermittent fasting is not going to help you feel better. You're just going to be feeling like crap and you're just going to be overindulging in junk food. So those are really the big frequently asked questions that I get. So Suzanne, I know you're watching right now. If you have any other questions about fasting at all, any of the stuff we've covered, definitely feel free to ask now. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and probably wrap it up a little early tonight. And I'm again, for Suzanne watching and for the rest of us who will be watching this replay later, this weekend while we're preparing to get ready for our fast next Monday and you come up with questions, feel free to please post those in the group chat or send them to me in an email directly so I can make sure that we are all prepared. Now, because we won't have any, just because rather that we don't have any lessons or handouts or live chats next week, I am going to be here for you and supporting you throughout the entire week of your practical fast. So every evening next week, Monday through Friday, you are going to be checking in with me via the portal whether or not you successfully completed your fast that day. And that's going to help me keep track with you to make sure that you're doing well. And if I see that you're struggling, I'll be able to step in and help you out a little bit. But I'm also going to be in contact with each of you regularly throughout next week, just to make sure that everything is going smoothly and that no obstacles come up that may surprise you, that way you have my help in case those situations arise so that we can make sure you guys are being successful. So With that, I think we'll wrap it up a little early tonight. Suzanne, thank you. If you don't have any other questions, post them in now. Otherwise, we'll get ready to wrap things up. But I appreciate you guys so much for following along with the video lessons this week, for reading those handouts, and for tuning in to the live Q&A chats or for watching the replays. These are great resources to continue to use. They're going to stay in your portal all through next week. So if you need a refresher on any of the material, they're there at your disposal to watch anytime you'd like. Thank you guys for tuning in and asking such great questions about intermittent fasting. I hope you guys learned so much this week about how to properly implement an intermittent fasting style approach. And we were able to clear up some of the misconceptions about intermittent fasting and make sure that you are as prepared as possible next week to absolutely crush this 5-day challenge of a consecutive intermittent fast. So with that, I look out for that form tomorrow, upload it to your portal where you identify all of the fasting variables that you're going to go into next week with. That way you and I could be on the same page. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a tremendous weekend. I hope you guys all have something fun planned, but I will touch base with all of you guys shortly. And on Monday, we start the 5-day practical portion. You're going to put all of this knowledge to use, and I can't wait. So have a good weekend. I will see you guys then.